Ogiaranye se adoma o na repe ire dagari o yema o asegi gwi ga kan gwi o tuna etagaba eboda o.
Adesuwa died in the hands of Oboro, the beauty queen of Benin Kingdom, and the sweetheart of Oba Akengbuda died in the hands of a merry provincial head who was not even equal to a Benin chief. This will produce nothing but trouble. This will result for a big trouble for Oboro and his entire kingdom. It was an insult to the Benin Kingdom and the Oba. It should be noted at this point that the Benin people believed they were superior to any other ethnic group. They were very proud, and that was what gave birth to evil body markings that they had on in order to differentiate them from other ethnic groups. Ara ìsọ̀rẹ̀ tó ẹ̀tọ́ ọ̀dín o, ẹ̀tọ́ ra sọ̀rọ̀ mọ́ ẹ̀tọ́ ọ̀dín o. Ara ìsọ̀rẹ̀ tó ẹ̀tọ́ ọ̀dín o, ẹ̀tọ́ ra sọ̀rọ̀ mọ́ ẹ̀tọ́ ọ̀dín o. Adesuwa's servant got back to Benin and reported to her master what transpired at Oboro Palace. This brought sudden tears to the whole of Benin. The Ezomo ran to the Oba Palace and explained to Oba Akengbuda how Oboro used sham to call his daughter into a sudden death. It is the debtor that now killed the creditor. A meeting of the elders was immediately called, and all the elders who heard of the story mourned. They wept for the beauty that was suddenly taken away from Benin. All of them came to a conclusion that Oboro killed Adesuwa in rebellion to Benin and must be duly punished. The Oba said he did not desire that Oboro be conquered. He specifically demanded for the head of Oboro. With this conclusion, the stage was already set for another war. This time around, it was not just a merry war, it was a war against the most powerful warrior at that age. Even the chiefs acknowledged that Oboro was not just an ordinary warrior to be captured easily. They knew they had to prepare both physically and spiritually in order to remove his head from his neck. Oboro gbe Adesuwa o, ologo meni me ya gaga, ologo mene do me ya kie. Oboro ya me eri o, Oboro gbe Adesuwa o, Adesawa nu sabwe. Oboro gbe Adesuwa o, Adesawa nu sabwe. Ogwe zabu no ezama zabure. Puno ezama uro kiemeye me o kiemeye uro kiemeye me o kiemeye uro kiemeye me o kiemeye. The story of Adesuwa, the daughter of Chief Ezomo Nuzebu, is very fascinating in the history of ancient Benin Kingdom. History tells us that Adesuwa was the most beautiful woman in Benin Kingdom. Her life was tied to her beauty. The same beauty that brought her so much fame and honor also led her to early grave. The life of Adesuwa was cut short in the hands of Oboro after she verbally abused him in Oboro Kingdom. When the news of the death of Adesuwa was reported to the Benin people, hair was let loose in the kingdom. Prior to the death of Adesuwa, the Oba of Benin at that time, Oba Akengbuda, had proposed to marry Adesuwa, and the Benin people were preparing for the marriage ceremony. The father of Adesuwa himself, Chief Ezomo Nuzebu, was the richest chief in the kingdom at that time. He wept profusely and ran to the palace to report the news of Adesuwa to the king. Oba Akengbuda responded by demanding for the head of Oboro be removed from his neck. However, Oboro was the most powerful warrior in the kingdom at that time. He was deemed as the most mystic figure who could disappear and reappear in form of 7 people. When the Benin warriors finally confronted Oboro, anger met with anger. The beauty of Adesuwa cannot be expressed in words. She was called the Queen of Beauty. Some claim she was a spirit, while others said she belongs to the gods. From the different descriptions of Adesuwa, it is obvious that she was the most beautiful woman that ever lived in Benin. She was described as the beauty queen of Benin Kingdom. Adesuwa was the loved daughter of Chief Ezomo Odia, the second Ezomo after the title became hereditary in the days of Ezomo Ihenua, his father. The news of her beauty got to the palace of Oba Akengbuda, who wasted no time in making his love intention known to her. She had several noble suitors, but was not in haste to get married to anyone. She eventually gave in to the love proposal of Oba Akengbuda. The news of Adesuwa's beauty and romance with the king had gone far and wide. Plans and preparation for marriage was going on. Adesuwa is said to have been a very industrious young lady who was very good at what she did. She sold goats at the market. Her beauty and father's wealth did not make her lazy. This was the reason she gained lots of respect from people in the kingdom.
Wagiaranye se adoma o na rekpe ire degari o yema o asegi gwi ga kan gwi o tuna etaga eboda o.
On a particular day in Benin City, about the year 1752 AD, the Ogie or Duke of Oboro Kingdom paid a visit to the Ezomo, who was the defense minister of Benin Kingdom at that time. The new Duke of Oboro Kingdom, which is located at the eastern part of the present-day Delta State in Nigeria. In those days, it was the Oba of Benin that had the authority to invest such leaders, as the kingdom was under his political jurisdiction. It is strongly believed that one of the children of the Oba of Benin founded the Oboro Kingdom. Ezomo and Oboro were very good friends. They had fought along each other during several tribal wars in defense and expansion of the kingdom. When they met again at the palace of the Oba of Benin, Ezomo invited him to his palace at Uzebu in order to celebrate his new position with him.
Abiaba bivio adonani mose Aribiaba bivio osaya we o Abiaba bivie Aribiaba bivio osaya we o.
The visit of Oboro to the palace of Chief Ezomo led to the death of Adesuwa. The visit of Oboro to Ezomo's palace changed the story of Princess Adesuwa and turned her life around. The Ezomo, in his joy to welcome his old friend, quickly called his wife to bring kola nut for his bosom friend Oboro. His wife, Idia, was the mother of Adesuwa, asked Adesuwa to present the kola nut before Oboro. The moment he set his eyes on Adesuwa, the king was stunned at the beauty that was before him. He was carried away by the charming beauty of Adesuwa, Ezomo's daughter. It was recorded that for some minutes he was confused. He immediately fell in love with her. Oboro asked Chief Ezomo who the beautiful Denzel was. The Ezomo told him she was one of his daughters. Oboro quickly acknowledged that he had never seen a beauty like that in all his life. Adesuwa was a very hard-working and independent young lady that sells goats at the markets. Immediately, Oboro demanded to buy a goat from Adesuwa. He claimed that he perceives she sells better goats due to her beauty. He bought the goat on credit and promised to send the money the next day through his servant from Oboro. This was his plan to bring Adesuwa to Oboro in order to make known to her his plan and intention to marry her. Along the line, the central refused to hold and things fell apart. Oboro was not an ordinary man in the kingdom at that time. He was the most powerful warrior. So, and he was also deemed as the most mystic being who could disappear and reappear in a form of 7 people, and he had this magic sword. He was also a sorcerer, warrior of great skills and supernatural ability, and he is well known for the use of his magic sword that could defy any charm or magic. But this great and powerful king fell into the web of love immediately he got home to his palace at Oboro. He quickly called for his personal diviner to come and consult for him. He told him of his encounter with the beautiful daughter of Adesuwa. He said he has set traps on how to bring her to Oboro and marry her. He told the diviner that he bought a goat from Adesuwa on credit and promised to pay her by the next day. His plan is to use the debts to bring Adesuwa to Oboro. He ordered the native doctor to call her spirit and bring her to Oboro to come and collect her money. Nothing should by any means stop her from coming to Oboro. The native doctor said he needed to consult the gods first and find out what they had to say concerning the issue. After consulting the gods, he warned that Oboro should forget about Adesuwa. He said the gods have revealed that if she comes to Oboro, the end will be very tragic. This will lead to great disaster and many lives will be lost, including the king's life, which was in danger. The king refused to listen to the advice of his diviner. He said he was ready to lose his life as far as he could see Adesuwa again, make her his wife. To him, his life is worth nothing anymore as far as he can make Adesuwa his wife. He was engrossed in the fairy tale of marrying the most beautiful woman that ever lived in Benin. He said he was ready to go to any length to make her his wife. He was born a warrior and was not afraid of any war or anything that will come after it. Oboro and his diviner were using charm to call the soul of Adesuwa to come to Oboro. At the palace of Adesuwa had become very angry and restless. She told her father of how she waited for his friend throughout the day at the market and he has refused to send her money as he promised. She threatened that by noon the next day, if Oboro does not return her money, she will go and meet him at his palace in Oboro to pay her what he owed her. The Adesawa was surprised at the sudden change in Adesuwa's attitude. He called her mother to speak to her, but she refused to listen to anyone. Even when the mother offered to pay her the debt, she refused to accept the money, insisting that Oboro must pay the debt himself. With the new change of attitude, the parents realized that something has gone wrong. Early in the morning the next day, Adesuwa was already preparing her journey to Oboro. Her father at this point knew that Oboro was using charm to call his daughter, and there was nothing he could do about it because the spirit of Adesuwa had already answered the diviner at Oboro. They quickly called their own native doctor to consult the gods and find out if there was still any solution to the case of Adesuwa. They were told that nothing can be done to stop her as Oboro had already called her soul, and she will die if not allowed to answer the call at Oboro. The other problem was that she might not come back alive if allowed to go to Oboro. The only thing they could do was to allow her to go and use divination to make her miss her way on the road to Oboro. And then she can now return home after trying to answer the call of her soul. They also decided to protect her with some charm that will prevent cutlass and gunpowder from penetrating her body. Her servant was made to travel with her in the form of a spirit and make it impossible for Adesuwa to find her way to Oboro Kingdom. No matter what the parents tried to do to stop Adesuwa, it was not working anymore because Oboro and his diviner have already called the soul of Adesuwa. Adesuwa started the journey that will alter the relationship between Oboro Kingdom and the Benin Kingdom. When she got to the path that leads to Oboro, the road became seven because of the divination that they gave her. This mystery was done by her slave who was with her but was not visible due to the leaf the diviner at the Adesawa palace gave her to place in her mouth. At least through the manipulation of Oboro and his diviner, she found her way to Oboro Kingdom. At her entrance to the town, everyone who saw her was amazed at her beauty, as they had never seen anyone as beautiful as Adesuwa. Some felt she was a spirit. Adesuwa finally located the palace of Oboro. I think at this point that Oboro should have also made charm to make the young girl love him, because Adesuwa hated every bit of him. She was raging in anger when she got there and immediately demanded for her money. Oboro tried to use every softening words to calm the angry princess down. She kept on raining insults on the king in his throne. The king did not mind her insult. He pleaded with her that he planned to send the money the next day because the servant that was to bring the money to her fell ill. He, however, promised to make up for the pains and stress he made her go through on the journey to Oboro Kingdom. Adesuwa was not interested in his apologies. She called him a poor debtor that could not pay for a merry goat, planning to make up for her pain. All she needs now was her money and nothing from a king that was less than a Benin slave. Oboro was getting angry now at her continuous insult, but he swallowed all the insult in the name of love. He told her she was the only one that could rain insult on him like that. He drew closer and tried to profess his love for her, and she refused his love, warning him not to touch her. She kept calling him names. She called him crab. The one that broke the camel's back was when she called him an uncircumcised slave. At this word, Oboro lost his temper and ran inside his room to take his magic sword and try to cut Adesuwa with it. At this, the leaf fell from Adesuwa's servant mouth as she screamed and she became visible. At first, the sword could not penetrate Adesuwa, but after Oboro made some incantations on his sword, and with it he removed the head of Adesuwa. Her servant picked back the leaf and became invisible again and began to cry home that Oboro has killed Adesuwa. Oboro gbẹ́ran Adesuwa ooo, olówó mẹ́nìmẹ́yà gàgà, olówó mẹ́nẹ̀dọ́mẹ́yà kìí, Oboro yá mẹ́rì ooo. Oboro gbẹ́ran Adesuwa ooo, Adesawa nu sẹ́bù ooo, Oboro gbẹ́ran Adesuwa ooo, Adesawa nu sẹ́bù ooo. Adesuwa died in the hands of Oboro, the beauty queen of Benin Kingdom, and the sweetheart of Oba Akengbuda died in the hands of a merry provincial head who was not even equal to a Benin chief. This will produce nothing but trouble. This will result for a big trouble for Oboro and his entire kingdom. It was an insult to the Benin Kingdom and the Oba. It should be noted at this point that the Benin people believed they were superior to any other ethnic group. They were very proud, and that was what gave birth to Iwu body markings that they had on in order to differentiate them from other ethnic groups. Ara ìsọ̀rẹ̀ tó dín o, ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ mọ́ ẹ̀tọ́ dín o. Ara ìsọ̀rẹ̀ ẹ̀tọ́ dín o, ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ mọ́ ẹ̀tọ́ dín o. Adesuwa's servant got back to Benin and reported to her master what transpired at Oboro Palace. This brought sudden tears to the whole of Benin. The Adesawa ran to the Oba Palace and explained to Oba Akengbuda how Oboro used charm to call his daughter into a sudden death. It is the debtor that now killed the creditor. A meeting of the elders was immediately called, and all the elders who heard of the story mourned. They wept for the beauty that was suddenly taken away from Benin. All of them came to a conclusion that Oboro killed Adesuwa in rebellion to Benin and must be duly punished. The Oba said he did not desire that Oboro be conquered. He specifically demanded for the head of Oboro. With this conclusion, the stage was already set for another war. This time around, it was not just a merry war, it was a war against the most powerful warrior at that age. Even the chiefs acknowledged that Oboro was not just an ordinary warrior to be captured easily. They knew they had to prepare both physically and spiritually in order to remove his head from his neck. At Oboro, the Ogioboro, knowing what he has put his hands, was preparing for a war against Benin. He deployed soldiers to the Benin-Oboro boundary. His soldiers were harassing women and men going about their businesses outside the territory. The incident fired up zeal within army led by 4 warlords. The Olia, Iyasere, Ologosere, and Esogba led different troops to the north, west, east, and the southern part of Oboro Kingdom. In quick succession, they defeated all the Oboro soldiers in all the areas apart from the eastern region. Ogioboro was in charge of the east himself. The battle between Ogioboro and Iyase was very fierce. The Ogioboro made use of his magical sword and inflicted great defeat on the Benin soldiers. According to traditions, he was almost defeating the Iyasere and the foot soldiers. They claim he changed into all manners of beasts in different occasions. At another period, he changed into 7 people fighting and killing soldiers with his magical sword at the same time. The Benin armies were defeated by Ogioboro and they returned back to Benin. On consulting the oracle, the Oba was told that the only one who could subdue Ogioboro was Omokpangbe, the Enogi of Ugo, who was also known as Agboidi. This because Agboidi once studied as a student of magical art and science under Ogioboro. He alone knew or had the secret of his defeat. The death of Adesuwa has now become national issue that is demanding the effort of everyone in the country in order to bring back the glory of Benin by defeating Ogioboro. Agboidi was the Enogi of Ugoniyekoriomo with the title of Agboidi. He had an indomitable spirit, but he was very ugly looking. He was a hunter by profession and was very near in killing the leopards, elephants, and other fierce animals. It was customary to every Enogi of Ugo to hunt, as they are all born warriors. But Agboidi has been specially warned in his youth by his parents through the oracle that he should not hunt at the bank of the river Igbahon, especially on a Ken day, to avoid any ill-fated circumstances against him. Few years after his parents' advice, Agboidi went hunting on a Ken day. To a great surprise, he unexpectedly met a spirit of Igbahon. At the sight of her, he became utterly speechless and returned home downcast. His mother, who was filled with horror and great distress at the sight of his son, instantly invited so many native doctors to treat her son. None of them were able to cure him. It was at this point the oracle hinted that Ogioboro, a skillful physician of his time, could cure him easily. The Ogioboro affected the cure after 2 months, but Ogioboro predicted and told Agboidi that he would kill him in the future, but the same fate would surely befall him afterward. Agboidi replied him that he could not pay back his kindness towards him with evil, that he shall forever remain grateful and loyal to his friendship, and made vow with his life never to betray their friendship. Now there arose a need that might break the covenant Agboidi made with the master and tutor. Oba Akengbuda, however, wasted no time, sent for Agboidi to come and answer the clarion call of his nation by helping the Benin soldiers to defeat this overmighty warrior that has defied all odds. Special messengers were sent repeatedly by the Oba to invite Agboidi to Benin City in order to undertake the campaign. At first, Agboidi refused the undertaking because he recollected that the predictions of Ogioburu while he was a patient and student under him at Oboro. He pleaded with the Oba that Ogioburu was his benefactor, therefore he could not haunt him. Also, they made a vow with his life not to betray him in the course of their life. The Oba promised to reward him greatly. His favorite wife, Emokpolo, was used to manipulate him to agree to this arrangement. Agboidi assisted Benin warriors to conquer Oboro, while the head of Ogioboro was removed from his neck. However, the death of Ogioboro led to another conflict between Agboidi and the Benin kingdom. This disagreement resulted to another war between Ugboniyekoriomu and Benin kingdom. Agboidi declared war against Benin, started with an upright rebellion by killing traders who came to Ugbo for business transactions. The Oba at first refused to challenge him due to the way he distinguished himself during the Benin-Oboro conflict. He offered him pardon, but Agboidi could not desist from his rebellion and even began to harass Benin. In 1775, the Oba of Benin was therefore compelled to send his royal armies against Ugbo, and a fierce battle was fought. Agboidi was defeated, but he escaped alive, and being frustrated and hopeless of further success, he went and drowned himself in the river of Igbahon before he could be overtaken. Thus, the predictions of Ogioboro against Agboidi was fulfilled. Even the predictions of the diviner at Oboro Kingdom, who consulted the gods and warned Ogioboro to forget about Adesuwa. He said the gods have revealed that if she comes to Oboro, the end will be very tragic. This will lead to great disaster and many lives will be lost, including the king's life. The predictions of the diviner came true in the story. The short life of Adesuwa resulted to double war for the Benin Empire. Because of the events that accumulated after Ogioboro murdered Adesuwa, females are since then forbidden from presenting kola nut to any guest in Benin Kingdom. That is the end of the story. Oboro gbema Adesuwa o, ologo meni me ya gaga, ologo mene do me ya kie, Oboro ya me eri o, Oboro gbema Adesuwa o, Adesawa nu zabwe, Oboro gbema Adesuwa o, Adesawa nu zabwe o, onwe zabu na ezama zabure. Zabuno ezama uro kiemeye me o kiemeye uro kiemeye me o kiemeye uro kiemeye me o kiemeye.
Abioba bivie donewa ire Abioba bivie o sayawe o Abioba bivie o adonani mose o Abioba bivie o sayawe o Abioba bivie Abioba bivie o sayawe o Abioba bivie o sayawe o Abioba bivie sayawe o Abioba bivie sayawe o Abioba bivie o